also go into these faculties here in the female body. So, a woman who has been traumatized in this way is different. Okay? So, here are some of the physiological attributes for life if these issues are not healed. The nervous system can be healed through understanding quantum healing or going to any number of healing processes or working with shamans or plant medicines. There are many different ways to get to China, so to speak. There are many ways to heal and let go. And it's a letting go thing, and telling your body on a conscious level of repeated affirmations that you're safe. When you tell the nervous system that you're safe over and over again, this affirmation is like a song. When you tell your body that you're safe and you let go and you forgive yourself and you forgive any perpetrators, and you repeat this, telling yourself that you're safe and that you're loved and that you're held by yourself and your community or your partner, then your body will start to realize on a subconscious level. Telling yourself on a conscious level that you're safe doesn't do much, but repeating it, when we repeat something the same way we learn a song, we break through to the subconscious nervous system, change our neuroplasticity, change our epigenetics, and we change the sympathetic nervous system to move back into a higher activation of the autonomic nervous system. Is the whole making love and feeling safe and resting and regenerating and having more blood in our viscera, as we talked about in the first workshop. When you're in a state of stress or fight or flight, activated sympathetic nervous system, you are constantly pumping blood away from your organs into your limbs. If you want to hear more about that, the first workshop. But attributes in the female body: higher blood pressure, higher pulse, stronger startle rate. That means when you get a fright, you get way more freaked out because you are hyper vigilant to threats and you are ready to defend yourself against threats in your environment due to damage in your nervous system. Different tone of voice. Women often have a higher tone of voice who have been sexually abused or sexually assaulted. They don't have as ability to stand ground and speak, to share, because they feel threatened all the time and wanting to kind of be internal and more introverted. Another attribute which was discovered by a Dutch doctor, he would get a whole lot of women and he would push them to see what kind of level, there's a test you can do to what level their balance is at. Women's balance is not as good when you've been sexually assaulted. And he realised that the less balance, the more trauma there was in the nervous system. As well, when you're in fight or flight, you're pumping blood away from this part of your body, so your sexual faculties are more closed down. You're pumping more blood away from your heart and from your organs. And you also, when you're in a higher baseline activation of the sympathetic nervous system, your ability to trust and surrender and connect on an intimate level is completely impaired. And it goes beyond wanting to. This is your nervous system. This is 95% of your body's kind of emotional faculties being activated by a nervous system which is subconscious, which means you're not choosing. Okay? So this trauma goes into your nervous system where you're not choosing to feel like this, but you might be in a situation where you feel extreme danger because of a trauma in your nervous system. So it's the other things as well is like, low sense of self, low creativity, low willfulness, low feistiness, those sort of things. And it's as well as being, whenever you're in a relationship with a woman or in a friendship or in any kind of close contact, you can see a palatable difference between someone who is traumatized and not. It's a very, very tangible thing. Even eye contact and stuff like this. When people feel a lot of fear, shame and anxiety around their sexuality and what happened to them as well. And a lot of this fear, shame and anxiety is projected onto us through the taboos of the Judeo-Christian and Muslim religious taboos around how we should feel about our own sexualities. Even looking at the word in German for vagina is like shame zone. So we have all this, and again what we talked about Australian language, we have all this projected fear, shame, guilt and anxiety around us. So if that is coupled with sexual assault events, we have a huge amount of self-sabotage. In the lower East End, Vancouver, that's the poorest postcode in North America, there's a very, very high amount of heroin addiction. And what they realised with heroin addicts in that area through a lot of study, that 85% of these heroin addicts, before they became addicts, were sexually assaulted. So again, people go into these sorts of addictions of extreme avoidance because they cannot deal with the constant review and compounding reassessment of what happened to them. And so much of the difficulty of the reassessment comes from the projected cultural taboos, fear, shame, guilt and anxiety around these events. And that sort of support and understanding is not available on the quantum level with the healing of the nervous system. This is serious shit. Okay? So a lot of addiction in our culture as well over here stems from these sorts of traumas. And not so much the trauma, how we're taught to think we should feel about the trauma. It's really, really sad. So, how can we help heal this? By understanding ourselves. Through healing ourselves, we're going to start healing each other, and through this transmission of knowing, and through this sort of conversation that we're having here, we're talking about stuff that people aren't comfortable talking about in our culture. We're taught to be willfully ignorant and numb around these issues and not discuss them, because we live in a culture that doesn't want this to change on a lot of levels, because it's tough and there's a lot of corrupt guru archetypes out there and misogynistic archetypes, men and women, who don't want this to change, because there's a whole lot of different agendas running on keeping this in play. So it's a lot easier to not do anything and to keep taking heroin or antipsychotics or ganja or whatever you're doing to willfully numb yourself from the reality in our culture or in our personal history or family history. So, when we can understand the attributes in our own sexuality that stem from this culture's trauma around how we're treating each other and how to transcend these faculties in ourselves through our own internal forgiveness and external forgiveness into the environment, and coming back to a place of oneness, consent, transparency and respect for ourselves and each other. But the big one here is forgiveness, okay, to transcend these realities.